Okay, we'll now open, call to order the pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. And run right to adjustments to the agenda.
Commissioner Halp, I think, has an adjustment, an update under new business,
Okay.
if that's correct.
And, Commissioner Halp. Any additional adjustments? I don't know if this qualifies an adjustment, but just so that as we're going through the 7 o'clock hour, prior to the public hearing, which is set after the presentations and appointments, this is a public comment period this evening. And I think at that point, I'm going to split that public comment period and afford the first person, I think I've seen he's already signed up, Sheriff Campbell, to be able to speak to us using the allotted 3 minutes and pull that forward. I think based on some preparatory remarks that I made together with his comments that may answer a number of people's questions about whether they want to remain for the public comment period, the balance of it, and to be respectful of his time. And then we'll close that public comment period until the after unfinished business. And I believe under unfinished business, we may entertain a motion for a public hearing on February 4th concerning a Second Amendment resolution.
Okay.
When you open the meeting, would you mind letting folks know in advance that I've got to go away?
Yes, and that's one reason I bifurcated this, because we don't know how long that public hearing is going to run, and I thought it was important for all of the commissioners to hear at least Sheriff Campbell on the leadoff matter, since we've been collaborating with him on this resolution. All right. So with those clarifications, we'll move on to, we'll have 2 presentations to the Iredell County Public Library, which I have here, certificates of recognition. And we don't have any appointments before the board. We do have the public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to create the All-County Fire Protection Service District. And Kent, if you can come up and just give us a preview. And I think you, yes.
No, I want you to yell from the back.
Have you got the?
Here's completely
have you got
clogged,
the
so I apologize.
slides to tee up?
We do have some slides. I don't have them on the computer. I have not seen Doug. Are they teed up here? Okay.
Okay,
We'll
let's make sure they're
prior to 7
available for
o'clock
the
meeting,
7
but it's just a
o'clock hour.
brief summary of what we went through at the winter retreat.
Well, we have those in our packet. We have a number of slides. I
Yes.
assume they're the same ones you.
They are correct, yes.
Okay. All right.
I just thought that maybe it might be a good idea to provide that up front and maybe dispel any questions that some of the people that may show up
That
have.
was really on the
Yeah.
process, not on the why.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that the why is the question we have to answer, which is, in effect, we are required by statute to provide fire protection. How the county provides that fire protection is up to the county.
Correct.
We could have our own fire department. That's costly. Or we can have a volunteer department model, which is what we've had for years. And to the extent that that is not supplanted by municipal departments, then that is our means of delivering fire protection services to the citizens of the county, right?
Correct.
But then
The why.
we need to understand why we are going to a county service district, because of essentially the changes in the number of volunteers that are available to be able to provide coverage during the working hours of the work week. And if you're going to maintain a volunteer-centric fire department model, then they have to be able to hire full-time folks to come in during those periods of time when their volunteers are not available. And that's additional costs over and above what the traditional model was structured to do. So in order to have a funding stream that is going to be sustainable over time, to be able to provide all the citizens of this county equal protection for fire and medical calls that are responded to by first responders, then this is how to be able to achieve that goal and still maintain a volunteer-centric fire service delivery process. Now, have I misspoke?
No, sir, right on point.
I think one of the big, one of the whys that we need to address is the fact that, we've got individual voted tax districts, we've got county districts, you've got municipalities. The model has changed. We are out working with, everybody's working with everybody else, and it's hard to keep track of, if this department's running more to help the neighboring department over here, they get funded a different way than the neighboring department does. And this is once and for all a way to kind of level the playing field a little bit, where it's not an undue burden on others.
And we have a long-term plan. We can at least project what our revenues and costs will be for the next 10 years or so. And that's something that we've not had. We've tended to fund year to year based on department requests. And it's a cost containment mechanism as well.
And I think it's important for people to understand this is really the culminating event of a 5-year process.
Yes.
Of taking a hard look at the resources and the resourcing of those fire departments and their missions and the ability to get the most bang for the taxpayer buck because of it as part of that agreed upon construct, we now have equipment purchases that are overseen by the county and are going to be laid out in such a way that they're based on equipment needs as well as the apparatus replacement program, and that way you avoid costly duplication of purchases where individual departments are making decisions without awareness and context of what apparatuses are actually needed. And so having addressed that, addressed the communications issues and having contracts and some accountability relative to equipment status and all of that, that this is just the final piece to get everybody on a sustainable financial path.
And a path that is reasonable.
Correct.
Okay, so as you're describing this, you can weave as much of that into your presentation as you like.
Sure.
But obviously, as commissioners, we'll have some comments to make.
Absolutely.
And then the public will likewise respond, and you can respond to.
I know there will be several fire chiefs and their board of director chairs here speaking in favor of it. Several of them have expressed the desire to come up and speak and just thank the board, thank the public for continuing to support the volunteer service. So we'll see who shows up.
Well, the alternative is a county-wide department, which will be much more costly. And we want to leverage, and what the people need to understand is volunteerism is a necessity for us to maintain this model. And that they should be encouraged, and we try to encourage them, monetarily, to compensate them for time and training events and all of that. But we really do rely on folks answering the call.
Absolutely.
Any other?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Beth, we're all ready to the administrative matters appropriate for our consent agenda.
Okay, perfect. The first item is a request from Finance Department, and Deb Cheek is here to request approval of amendment to the Third Creek and Woodland Heights Middle School's capital project ordinance in the amount of $150,000 for the town of Mooresville system development fees.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Deb.
I am here with an amended project ordinance for Woodland Heights and Third Creek Middle Schools. The Woodland Heights School is within the town of Mooresville's district, and they do charge a system development fee, and that fee is $150,000. We are going to appropriate investment earnings that we have already included in this project over the life so far to pay for those system development fees.
Any comments or questions? Consent?
Consent.
Okay, and Deb also has the next item, which is a request from Finance Department for approval of budget amendment number 19 to appropriate $8,030,441 of retained earnings in the solid waste fund to transfer to the solid waste capital project for Phase 6 construction of cells 1 and 2.
Thank you. We are in the process of constructing Phase 6 cells 1 and 2 for the solid waste department. We have set up a capital project fund for that. And as you know, the Solid Waste Division has always operated very efficiently and effectively, and they have put back money for this construction in the amount of $8,030,000. And I'm just asking for the budget amendment to transfer that money from our Solid Waste Fund to this capital project fund.
Well, as Commissioner Robertson is fond of noting, our investment in our solid waste facility is probably one of the best investments that we've ever made in terms of the ability to provide long-term potential for growth and services to a growing county. And so this is just a natural progression of finishing out that vision. What's left after these two cells? The golf course?
That I don't know.
Well, you know, a lot of times just owning the adjacent property enables you to go to the line, as opposed to if you don't own the property, you can't go to your own line. And this is all good stuff. And also, just you know, hats off to everybody who's been involved in this for decades. Okay.
Yes.
Which is the money is here. Mm-hmm. Okay, the money's here. There are other entities that don't put the money away, and then when they have the need, it's, you know, scratching heads and, oh God, what are we going to do? I mean, this is how you're supposed to run it. People complain and they go, oh, well, gee, we have these fees. Yeah, and you also have a place to put your waste. If you think it's expensive, try shipping it to another county.
Well,
Okay?
it's an enterprise fund. It's designed to be able to pay its way.
It's designed to pay its way, and it does. So,
Yes.
And I
so
tell you,
again, hats off to everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just solid waste, it's finance. It's the previous commissioners and the leadership of the county management team that made sure that we kept this on firm financial footing. So,
and it is overwhelming how much waste comes into that place. Have you been up on top of that cell they're finishing now? It's like crying from the mountaintop out there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you can almost see downtown Statesville from the top of that.
one of these days, people are going to pay $60,000 to not climb Mount Everest, but climb to the top of our.
I think we need to buy some snowmaking machines and have a system.
I know.
We could
But
turn that. It can not only pay its way, it can be a profit center.
But it is. There's a lot of waste, you know, from if you don't go and 6 months later and you go out, how much more that has come out, especially when you start getting to the top and the base of that thing starts to narrow and the same amount of tonnage of waste is coming in per day, that thing gets up in the air quick. It really does.
All right, consent,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Consent?
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. The next item is a request from Emergency Management, and Mr. Green is here to request approval for Budget Amendment Number 20 and authorize the Finance Department to issue funds received as reimbursement under the public assistance due to the subtropical storm Michael that impacted Iredell County in October of 2018 to 15 volunteer fire departments as well as the Iredell Rescue and North Iredell Rescue.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I feel like I was just up here. But this is a result of several months of working with FEMA's Public Assistance Program, compiling data from the fire departments, rescue squads, EMS, Sheriff's Office, as well as the damage that was suffered at solid waste. Finally, we're able to work through all the paperwork and red tape and get those projects approved and funded, and this is the result. And I believe we still have one project outstanding, which is the administrative costs involved in compiling all of this information, which is still to come. But I believe the total, and this is going to be about $68,000, that a majority of which will go to solid waste for their damages, but some will also go out to the volunteers. And this is just to repay them for their equipment time. FEMA does not reimburse volunteers for regular time. If they had paid staff that worked overtime, that is reimbursable, but none did.
All right, any questions or comments? Consent?
Consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Ken.
for getting it.
The next item is a request from Planning and Development to consider calling for a public hearing on February the 4th, 2020 in regard to text amendments to the Land Development Code. Mr. Todd is here to make this request.
Afternoon, Matthew.
Good evening. The text amendment we have before us tonight, again, is just the call for the public hearing. This one dates back probably a couple years. We had a request in an area of the airport overlay for a cell tower. The applicants went to the Board of Adjustment to ask for a variance because in discussions they had with the airport manager, they did not see an issue with it, and also FAA had issued a no hazard determination for the proposed tower. So it kind of got everyone thinking, well, what's going on with the ordinance if those two entities don't see an issue with it? So we finally drafted an amendment, and we have had discussions with the consultant for the airport and also the airport manager regarding this text amendment. And it is, this section can be pretty involved from the overlay. We are making a slight change with the thought process of we probably need to revisit this whole overlay in the coming year jointly with the city of Statesville and the airport to maybe do a more comprehensive text amendment. Again, this is a minimal change that the airport manager and their consultant have not seen an issue with. Essentially, in that zone that's been identified as an issue, our old ordinance, and I'll go back several years, actually said the elevation of the runway, that nothing could go above that elevation. I think it's back with the rewrite that got changed to say, okay, you can go 50 feet above that or to whatever that zoning district allows. Most of the zoning districts have a 35-foot height, so it's going to be either 35 or 50. And what we found is that still wasn't enough. So what we proposed is basically to say, if they have a no hazard determination from the FAA and the airport manager signs off on it, then it should be able to proceed in this one particular zone. Planning Board, you voted unanimously to approve this request or this text amendment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What happens if we approve this text amendment? It allows a cell phone tower, and then there's a master plan done later at the airport, and that master plan says that tower shouldn't be there. Then what happens?
You know, from my discussions with the consultant, I don't think that's going to be an issue because if that was an issue, they wouldn't be. They would have pointed out that it was a problem. And again, we're not necessarily approving a specific cell tower, but we're allowing something to go above those height restrictions.
I mean, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here because it's been through all the subject matter experts with all of the aviation. It's come up through our staff. It's come up through the planning board. But you have to think that's just something that makes you go,
But,
Well-
we've dealt with it for a long time. Matthew's worked on it for some time. That cell tower service in that area is terrible, and they never could work on a cell tower in that area. But with the way that he's got it going now, the approval of the airport people and all that stuff will make sure, hopefully, that it would not infringe on any kind of flight patterns and that kind of stuff.
Well, and obviously, they got to get the technical experts to agree with it anyway.
Right.
if it were ever to be presented, then these subject matter experts would be back involved with it, correct?
As far as another text amendment,
The FAA, you're saying?
Oh, yes,
FAA
yes.
is going to have to buy off on it, and the airport.
correct. Yeah, any individual request, the FFA has to issue their no hazard determination.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Consent?
Can you consent that? Because it's got
We're
specific.
calling for a public
Oh,
hearing.
call it for, yeah.
Okay, consent?
Thank you.
Just a call.
The next item is a request from Tax Administration for approval of December refunds and releases, and there are no commissioner names on those lists.
This always holds us all in suspense, I guess. Okay, consent?
Consent.
Then we have a request from Administration for approval of departmental strategic goals, and Caroline Taylor is going to be making this request.
In November, all of the department heads submitted goals that they wanted to work on over the next year, or in most of the cases, over the next couple of years. Beth, Susan, Joe, and I sat down and we went through every goal. We talked about each goal. We reached out to department heads to answer any questions that we had, to make any changes that we thought we needed to make, and we really try to thoroughly vet the goals. Then in December, all of these goals were presented to the respective task force, and those task force members were given the opportunity to ask any questions or make any changes. So tonight, the goals that you have are the goals that were all approved by the task force, and we are asking for your approval for these goals for the departments to work on over the next year.
So you're the expert now on all the goals, right?
Sure.
And I'll just note, one of the reasons it's important to get the board to sign off on these goals, of course, it's important for our directors to know that they have goals that are accomplishing the mission, vision, and goals of the Board of County Commissioners, and that we're working in tandem together. But also, we will be having our budget roll out on Thursday of this week, so it's important to know, for them to know as they prepare their budget for the upcoming year, that these goals have been adopted and approved, and they will actually, some of these goals will be part of and go into future budget requests the department directors will be looking for.
Well, that ties in the three legs of the stool, ends, ways, and means.
Correct.
You've got the ends, you've got ways to achieve those ends, and rolling into the budget, you'll determine whether there's the dollars to accomplish those ends to the fullest extent, based on availability of resources. So,
Absolutely.
does anyone have any comments, or?
In our task force, we always discuss that that the goals are going to be based upon the availability of funds. So don't think that we're sending you off on a wild goose chase to create a lot of goals that we're not willing to fund. It's going to be as it's available. And I think most of the departments understand that.
They do, and we made sure that regardless of which task force the goals went before, that we all kind of repeated the same message. And you'll see that some of these goals, actually several of them, are multi-year goals. Some of them are just one-year goals, but a lot of them are multiple years.
And a lot of these goals, too, are goals that they have been working on for the past year or 2 years, and that they're continuing into the next year.
No, reading through all of them, it's a very informative overview about the different departments and all the innovative and creative ideas that they're bringing to bear to continue to improve delivery of services or continue to improve the conditions of our citizens. So And that's what we want them to do, is be focused on that. It's not just, okay, we just come in and we do business as usual every day for the rest of our lives. It's how do we go through a process of constant evaluation, reevaluation, improvement, and how to figure out how to do things smarter. And so very impressive, I think, body of work, and appreciate your working to herd all the cats and put all this before us.
That kind of makes Caroline a goalie, doesn't it?
You know,
Along with several other things. Thank you, Caroline.
Absolutely.
That's the worst position for a parent to have their children in, as a goalie.
Do we plan to touch on any of these in our retreat in February? Specifically questioning, with the departure of Malia in that department, the succession planning, does that change your timetable on anything we may need to help you address? Strategic goal for building standards, at our meeting today, the Developers Council, they continue to improve on the permitting, and that's improving. Are we planning on, other than you guys, just getting an update on this stuff, during the year on things that, circumstances that change that may expedite your goal in certain departments?
Specifically, the succession planning goal, that is an ongoing goal that we have year after year, and that is a program that we're working in and have implemented in all of our different departments. So that's going to be an ongoing goal that we will continue to work on. The details of when that goal is applied and how we do that, given certain retirements and things of that nature, that's something that we'll do on a regular basis. So I don't really envision that coming back before the board at a retreat, because that's going to be an ongoing goal, and that's going to be part of our regular operation. And we should always be planning ahead and planning for the future and making sure that we're training our staff and that we have a succession plan for those unforeseen. And, there's issues where we are aware. Somebody will give us a heads up, I plan on retiring next year or something like that. But then there are others that we're not aware of, and we don't have as much advance notice. But that's the beauty of a succession plan, is that we're prepared for the seen and unforeseen issues. We will have a lot of things that will come before the board at the winter retreat, but as far as digging into the specifics of these goals, probably not so much. We'll be looking more towards guidance for budget-related issues from the board. And some of those do tie into these goals, but then some don't.
I was piggybacking on Commissioner Bowles' comments, is things change that impact these goals.
Yes.
So sometimes you may have to come to us and talk about some of those things. So that's all I was just asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Consent?
Consent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please thank all the department heads that you've worked very closely with and their staff.
Absolutely.
Continue to march.
They've worked very hard on these, so I will. Thank you.
Thank you for the work.
And thank you to Caroline.
Responsible.
Well,
You're the goalie.
Task delegated and the task complete.
You wear the different colored jersey.
well, speaking of wearing different color jersey, I do want to point out Caroline stepped up and has helped us a lot in our strategic planning piece. That's a new duty and responsibility that has been put upon her, and she has done a great job with it. So I do want to thank her for that. She has done an amazing job. So, and Deb, thank you for allowing us to add that to her already full plate. Okay, the final item for the consent agenda, for consideration of the consent agenda, is a request from the clerk to the board for approval of the minutes from the meetings on December the 17th, 2019, and January the 7th, 2020.
No changes other than in the previous meeting, if you remember when ICAPS did their presentation, he was talking about some funding had been withheld, and that was supposed to be resolved last Friday, and as of the email I saw yesterday or today, it had not been. So, and we said that if that occurred, that he would prepare some slides for me to take back to CRTPO. That's still the plan.
And they're still sitting on the money.
They
Basically.
got to show me the money.
I guess
And they got to show up Union County the money. If they don't, it's going to be a
And that's
Jerry
what,
Maguire moment.
3 years? Was it 3 years?
it was considerable.
Yeah.
17, 18, 19?
Yeah.
That amazes me, how you can get by with that. But
Okay, and consent?
consent.
Okay, I don't believe we have any announcements of any vacancies. We do have 2 appointments to boards and commissions, and there are one applicant for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council for 1 appointment, and then there are 3 applicants for the 1 appointment to the Recreational Advisory Council Board, rather.
I noticed on the 1 appointment that this young lady is actually on the Alexander JCPC. Can you be on both? I don't guess there's any reason why you couldn't. Never seen that before.
He lives in Statesville.
I do
And
know the JCPC nominating committee did vet her application. So.
Okay. It just said on there, I have been a member. Is that past tense or is that present?
Noticed that too, but and I can find out if you.
Okay. I was just curious. She seems to be qualified.
and with the judicial system, we are joined at the hip with
She's still on.
Alexander County in the
I would
22nd
assume that's
district.
been on there
A.
since 2010 to present.
There's some overlap there, because of the flavors involved in the judicial system. And we can have some discussion about offline, I suppose, individually about the other appointments. Unfinished business. The only unfinished business, I believe, will be following up on the presentation by Commissioner Haupt of the Surrey County resolution that we referred to our county attorney, Lisa, for review. And then, as Commissioner Norman mentioned, there was another request coming from Sheriff Campbell, which we received within a day. And so, together with those 2 proposals and some other resolutions that were passed by other surrounding counties like Lincoln and Davidson, she's done a legal review on those, and we have some draft language that she can expound on in our attorney-client breakout. And then what I would anticipate is on the unfinished business, just entertaining a motion to call for a public hearing.
On February 4th
February
at 7.
At 7, yeah. And that's not something that we are required to do, have a public hearing, but there's a lot of interest in it, and I think it's appropriate to have a public hearing which is focused on this one issue, as opposed to people just randomly getting up during a public comment period. And they'll have the benefit, I would hope, and it depends on the action of this board as to the language that we would be considering, that can be shared with the general public via a press release, and then people will have the opportunity to have been thoroughly acquainted with what our proposed actions are, and then come prepared to focus their comments on any issues that are probably already dealt with. They're not going to have to focus on those issues. So,
As the sponsoring commissioner for a resolution, if we do one, I'll be glad to make that motion at 7.
but we'll see what we come up with. It is a public comment period. As I said, I intend to bifurcate that will allow for Sheriff Campbell to, since he's already been signed up on the public comment period, to share his perspectives as we have, at this board's direction, collaborated with his office in terms of looking at appropriate language for this resolution. So, new business, Commissioner Howe.
I just want to update the board at 7. Had a busy day. We started with the Developers Council. Representative McHenry came into the county and addressed the growth in the south end, the impacts of the growth, and things that our federal representatives could potentially help with, with grant funding and different things. And then he went at Hunting Creek. Richard Reniger hosted a group of farmers at Hunting Creek to talk about dairy farmers, the impacts, and immigration and different things that the Trump administration and our representatives could help with our farmers. So I just wanted to update you guys about that at 7 and thank the host and Patrick Henry for coming. I was able to speak to the Developers Council, 2 staff members, Robbie from Building and Standards, and Matthew was there and did a great job updating the public on their department's impact and how they impact the county. So we have a growing county, and a lot of people are interested in what we're doing and how we're setting the trends, to help be a leader in the state.
Excellent. County Manager's report.
Just a few announcements. As I said earlier, we will start our budget kickoff with our department directors later this week. So after about Thursday of this week, our department directors are going to be probably pulling their hair out trying to get their budget packets ready to go. So this will kick off a busy time for us as we start the budget process. There will be a community health fair tomorrow on January the 22nd at the Iredell County Parks and Recreation Fitness Center on Grannis Lane. And they'll offer all kinds of free screenings for blood pressure, body mass index, diabetes risk, heart health, balance, things of that nature. So it's from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. And also, hopefully tomorrow, we will have the link live to the Parks and Recreation on their website for citizens to participate in the master plan study that we're doing. I think several of you went to the community input meetings and the business leaders and elected leader input meetings, those forums, and we are continuing that and trying to get as many citizens to participate in that survey as possible. It's very important for people to give us their feedback and let us know what's good with Parks and Recreation, what do we need more of, what should we focus on, all kinds of different information to make sure that we're providing the resources and adding to the quality of life that our citizenry they're expecting. So we're hoping that link will be live on our Parks and Recreation website tomorrow, and that's IredellParksandRec.com.
Very good. Anything else good for the good of the order for the pre-agenda? Okay, at this time, then we will recess to a closed session pursuant to attorney-client issues pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A3.